So I said I'm on the retail team here at Esri. I'm actually not a GIS guy. I'm learning to become one. But I spent a long career at Target and in retail, and I'm here to talk about, whoops, I'm not going to go quite that fast. I'm here to talk about retail and what I see in the retail industry, because as we've been talking about disruption and we've been talking about the digital revolution going on, the industry that I come from has certainly been impacted dramatically. As a matter of fact, if you go to Google and look up retail disruption, your page runs off with all of the different pundits who are writing all kind of things about it. And it would be really, really easy for me to say that retail disruption is kind of this epic battle between the brick and mortar retailers and the online retailers, but I think that's just a piece of it. And what I really see at hand is a shift in power between the retailer and the consumer. And for those of you who are sitting here going, well, I don't have retail stores, I don't have to worry too much about that, I would argue that every single consumer-facing business is being impacted by this shift of power, whether you're in insurance or in banking, anything where you're talking to consumers, this is something you need to be worried about. I'm going to tell a little story. I'm a bit of a storyteller, and that will sort of illustrate. So I have terrible seasonal allergies. Every spring, the trees try to kill me, honestly. And so I go to my local, this year in particular, I went to my local big box store, and I went to stock up on my allergy supplies, my Zyrtex, my Nasonex, my saline. It's a little embarrassing. And when I got there, I found that the Zyrtex, which is my go-to drug for allergies, was not available. And I was a little angry, to be honest with you. And the generic version wasn't there, so obviously everybody had beat me to the store. So what do? I do what everybody does. Reach in my pocket, I pull out my mobile device, and I go to my favorite online retailer who happens to offer 1-hour delivery in my market, and I look up my Zyrtex. Lo and behold, they have it in stock. Not only do they have it in stock, it was about $1 cheaper than what I was going to pay for looking at the shelf label. And I think to myself, I wonder what the other stuff is. Every single item that I had come in for was available on their site, cheaper, delivered to my house in an hour. And all I had to do was push the button, and it nearly beat me home. That transaction happened faster. I mean, really so fast that by the time the store associate came around the corner and said, "Can I help you find something?" my answer was, I'm good, thank you. And I walked out the door. That's what we're up against in this business. 24/7 access to everything. So what does that look like, and what does that mean from empowered consumers? The number one thing is there are new transparencies in the market. So I just described one from pricing and also from inventory. How many folks in here, let me just quick raise show of hands, have gone into a store to buy a television or a laptop, and before you pull the trigger and make that final purchase, you just want to make sure you're getting the best deal, and you whip out a device and look it up? Okay, almost everybody. As that has gotten easier and easier to do, the threshold of what you're willing to look up is dropping. I just did it with coffee makers. My wife thought I was crazy, but I want to make sure I'm saving $4 or $5. There's new expectations about service and brand performance. In my house, that sounds like this. What do you mean they don't offer free shipping? Okay. New loyalty drivers, so the things that are bringing people to products and bringing you into your store, they're changing really fast. And for a lot of us, it's been difficult to keep track. My case in point here, Greek yogurt, the rise of Greek yogurt. 2010, in the yogurt category, Greek yogurt had a 3% market share. The last number I saw in 2014, they were at a shocking 53%. And that 53% was not from a brand that had been in the other 90% back in the day. This was new brands, new products coming to market. And finally, new competitive pressures. This thing's a little more sensitive than I thought. New competitive pressures, new businesses arising all the time, new channels. Today I've got Facebook as a marketing channel, and I can buy stuff right off of Facebook. I don't even have to go to a competitor's website anymore. So what do? The strategies that are out there are pretty clear, and this is what I see the best-in-class folks doing to try to fend off this, what's happening with this, or manage this disruption? Number one, you have to keep the customers that you have, okay? And that means going out to acquire, first of all, losing customers or acquiring new customers is really, really expensive from a marketing standpoint. If you lose a customer and you lose market share, it's nearly impossible to bring those folks back. And the way you do that is you be relevant. Relevancy to your customers is giving them the products and the service that are important to them at the time that they want it. And from a GIS standpoint, this is one part of our business that gets me really, really excited. It's segmentation, localization, personalization. Three different words. If you want to talk afterwards, I can give you my definition of each. But at the end of the day, it's understanding who is shopping in my store, who is shopping online, who is not, and making sure that the products and services that I offer is what they want. Creating added value for our customers. This is something that GIS really can help out with, and specifically where we're going with inside the store mapping when I think of my example. Okay. We're in a death spiral here on the presentation. Okay. Added value. Shopping list. This is my favorite example here. If I'm a grocery store, provide my customer with a shopping list. Let her use her iPad to go through the cupboard and find the items that she likes or that she needs. Save that, get to the store, pull out her device, find her shopping list in the cloud, and then, if I really want to add value to her, take my merchandising plan, which is coming out of either my JDA tool or one of my floor planning CAD drawings, intersect that with the shopping list. I can now route her through the store. We saw through our IoT presentations and some of the things with Acuity, I can track her as she's going through her store. I can make her visit even more relevant. For example, I have this recipe I make with dried apricots. I buy them about once a year, and every year it looks like this. I put it on the list. My wife tells me to get it. I go to the store. I buy my list. I come back home. I show her what I bought. I get back in the car and go buy because I always forget it, no matter what it is. But what if I knew when I was in the baking aisle, this dried apricot, my list lights up? I would never forget it. It also gives you an opportunity to interact with your customer. So engaging with her on her mobile device. So I'm standing in front of the coffee aisle. I want to be able to, I'm looking at my branded coffee and I get an offer. Mr. Sankary, have you ever considered our private label coffee? Here's a 25% off coupon. If I convert that sale and turn me into a private label customer, number one, I build loyalty because now I've found a brand I like that I can't get anywhere else. But number two, I've also grown my store's gross margin. And the last thing I want to talk about is maximizing investments in brick and mortar. If you go back to my Google list and read through those, you might get a pessimistic view of brick and mortar. That is not one that I share. When I think about brick and mortar, I will tell you that the way that we're looking at our stores today is going to change, both inside and outside the store. But the stores are not going to go away. We can optimize. We have advantages over some pure play online retail. A great example is I might have a network in a neighborhood. I want to be able to deliver 1 hour delivery just like the other guys do. If I have a 150,000 square foot store that's sitting in a shopping mall that's not doing as well as it used to, I could potentially, with the right network analysis, figure out that maybe that store can get by with 80,000 feet, take my top 1,000 items, store them in that store, and deliver them with a 1 hour delivery. Okay, this thing is going crazy on me. All right, I could not get through this presentation if I didn't bring up the O word. And in this case, it's omnichannel. It's the big buzz out there. Let me define it for you and make it easy. Omnichannel is delivering a consistent customer experience across every channel. It's one brand, multiple channels, one experience. If I'm a customer and I buy things online, I want to be able to return them in the store nearby if it's from the same store. It's about pricing. I have it at the same price. The quality is the same. I think of the store as one brand, and that's how a true omni-channel strategy should work. Okay. I don't know who's working on here. But the fuel, all right, there was a slide that says data. It is not going to let me show that. But that data, that's the fuel that's going to drive, it drives everything we've talked about. All these strategies, the segmentation strategies, the omni-channel strategies, they're all being driven by data. Now, Mike Johnson started our weekend with a nice story about Wisconsin, growing up on a dairy farm and milking cows, and I happen to have a house in Wisconsin, so I can totally relate. I grew up north of here in Stockton, California, and I grew up in my dad's retail store. So I can honestly say that my retail career started when I was about 10 years old. And as I went through my dad's store and sold shoes and did all the things I did, I went off to college and I went to work for different retailers, and I wound my way up to Target, and I got into the executive ranks. And I remember, I learned all there was to know about replenishment and product development and all of these systems. And I went back to visit my dad. And he was in his store, and he was doing his inventory and ordering, using his clipboard and his pencil like he always does. And I shared a lot of great data with him. I said, Dad, let me tell you all about it. And my dad was not as open to feedback as I would have liked. But and I remember this really well. He stuck the pencil in his ear, and he said, Gary, retail is a really simple business. You buy stuff, and you sell it to your customers for more than you paid for it. And if you're really good at it, you know who your customers are, you know what your competition is doing, and you use your gut to make the right decisions. And quite frankly, I don't really disagree with anything that my dad, even 40 years later, said, except the days of using our gut, it's not the same. We have so much data today. We talked about it today. We've talked about it all weekend long. Data coming from everywhere, from the customers themselves telling us what they're doing, from their cell phones, from their washing machines, from the toaster, from the refrigerator, all this data coming to us. A good friend of mine, his name's Jeff Roster. He happens to be a former Gartner analyst who's now with a consulting firm called IHL, who has been reporting on retail technology for a long, long time. Well, when I asked Jeff about where are things going and try to get some insights from him, what's keeping the CIO in the retail world awake at night are two things. And the first thing is data security, as it should be, and I'm going to just tell you if that's not the case, we probably should talk. But the second thing is data. And it's not that we don't have, all right, this thing is, it's not that we don't have enough data. We have way more data than we need. It's trying to make sense of it. And how do I make sure that the people that I'm trying to share that data with, or the people that are trying to get insights out of that data, are able to do so successfully? And the data model, oh, okay, hang on. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I need it to stop right here. If anybody can help me with that. Put it down? All right. Back up one. No, it's on autoplay or something. All right. If somebody back there might be able to give me a hand. This is my first UC, so I think I'm being hazed, to be honest with you. And actually, if you go out to Twitter and look at Biz Summit, there's confirmation that I'm being hazed. Because there's a picture. All right, stop. It's not stopping. All right, let me take notes. The way, with all of this data, the thing that we had to figure out, and this was a big problem at Target, was how do I take this data and make it actionable? And I'm a huge fan of a capability approach. And the capability approach really has 4 steps. And the first step in that approach is to take a strategic plan, is to develop a strategic plan. And a strategic plan is not, I want system ABC so I can do 1, 2, 3. A strategic plan has to be about a business objective. I personally like the I want to so I can sorts of language. So let's take, for example, an omnichannel. I want to be able to create store-specific assortments so that I can relate to my customers, so I can make them more relevant to the stores that they're in. The next step is looking at your capabilities. And the capability, for example, in assortment planning, number one, I'm probably going to need to figure out how to do market research and how to get demographic data and understand who's in my store. There's another capability. I'm going to need to build a supply chain that can support localized assortments, meaning I can send specific product to specific store and build models at the store item level. You guys get it. Once I understand the capabilities involved, and I understand where I need to go with my strat and what strategy they're going to enable, I then go into a gap analysis to see where I need to build. And if you look at your capabilities, you're going to build something new. It could be that you have to extend something you already have, and you're probably going to find some things you can optimize and no longer support. The data model that we worked with, oh, now it works. I'm going to find out who did this. Okay. All right, now it's not going at all. All right. There's three pieces of data that you need to understand. The first one is product. We all have product data. Yeah, except now it's stuck. All right, I'm not touching it. Stay where you are. Product data, you have attributes about product in all retailers going back. This is things like size and color. And anybody who might be using a consumer decision tree to make decisions about what they want to do with their product, that's all product data. When I walk around retail trade shows today, it's all about customer data. It's all about customer attributes, and there's a number of companies that would tell you that we can get you down to the household and down to the kid and figure out where they do their soccer games and all that kind of stuff. The challenge that I have is when I talk to retailers and move around, they tend to stop right there. And we had that problem when I was at Target. If I do product and customer, I think I got it figured out, and now I can execute my omnichannel. My argument is location is the third piece of that puzzle. Every single retail transaction happens in a specific place for a reason. And if you really want a 360-degree view of what your customers are doing so that you can be relevant, so that you can provide them with value-added engagement, so you can keep them in your store and not lose them to your competitor, you have to have those three sets of data. So as you guys walk around for the next week, you're going to have your socks blown off by all of this cool stuff. As an old guy who used to work in this business of data, keep in mind the data strategy behind the scenes is what's going to power it. So thank you for your time. And now I think the last guy up here. I am being hazed. I knew it. All right. Thank you.